This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
There he is, Craigie, a bro, Craig Bromell. How you doing, man?
Hey, Todd. How are you doing, bud?
You like having the name bro? Like, I mean, it's in your last name, but I mean, is it, you ever feel like you get too old for bro, or you just like bro?
No, I've had that nickname since the early 80s when I first started on the streets as 51 Division. I was tagged with that name, and it's stuck with me ever since.
I love it, man. Nicknames are the best, especially when they come from others. There's a lot of people who sometimes they try to give themselves nicknames.
Yeah, this was given to me by others.
I love it. How are things going over at 360 Secure Corp?
It's going well. A lot of exciting things going on. Obviously, with the cannabis industry, it's changing just about every day. So it's challenges in front of us, but we're taking them head on and coming out ahead.
And I guess soon to be protecting edibles and things like that, making sure they get to the areas that they need to be delivered to safely.
Edibles are next. That's the next big, moment when it comes to cannabis. I think there's that part of this industry is going to be, I truly believe, half of the industry when it's all said and done. It's also part of where we all have to make sure that we're looking at controlling the product also. Obviously, there's a big concern with kids and all that. So, we really have to put the markers on there to remind people what it is. And I think that's a big part of it. And I think the federal government are moving to that direction to make sure that everybody knows which are edibles when it comes to cannabis and which are not. But I think it's going to be a big part of the industry.
Yeah, I saw a report the other day where they're saying like more pets than ever are being admitted to sort of veterinarian stuff because they're getting a hold of these types of things even. You're really, it is up to the consumer to be very, very careful where you store to make sure that a gummy's not next to a pack of, gummies you get at a convenience store. Like, really, you're right. I never sort of thought about that, but there's the education aspect of it, but the onus is on the end consumer to really just, ensure that this stuff doesn't get in the wrong hands.
Yes, and I think that should be the priority for all the decision makers involved in this on the edibles. That we got to make sure that it doesn't get in the hands of children, and I think for sure that has to be the priority moving forward.
Is it sort of an interesting message that the government's going to have to get across yet, and it's something that you've been very, very sort of profound about in the multiples of weeks that we've chatted here, Craig, but how the black market still exists, and who does the black market care who they sell to, what age they sell to?
Well, I can't. The black market's the black market. Hopefully, some do care, but they have a product out there that's not being controlled. Not being supervised. They're not going by the guidelines and the rules and the laws put in place by the governments. So it is a big concern, and it's still 70 to 75% of our industry in cannabis in this country, and actually in North America, is black market. Of that black market, I would say 3/4 of that is organized crime, and we're talking some heavy duty characters here. So I've said this before, and I really think that whether it's the federal government or the provincial governments involved have really taken a laid-back approach to this in challenging or fighting the black market when it comes to cannabis. And we wouldn't put up with this with any other industry if the black market controlled a big part of, whether it was a computer system or anything else that we are going to be dealing with daily during our lives. So why they're sitting back on this, I'm not sure. It's very frustrating for us. It's frustrating for anybody really involved. If you've invested in cannabis legally, it's very frustrating for the investors because, it's a big multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's only 30% of the industry. So everybody could be doing much better if there was more of an effort in taking out the black market when it comes to cannabis.
Another thing I never thought of, honestly, and as an investor in many different companies, I sort of never thought about the accountability on the government's ends not to expedite this to help a return for the investor, for an X company to have an ability to sell more product and not compete with a product that is being sold illegally at a usually less of a price, which brings down the market share. And I wonder if one day you'll ever see, like, I don't know if you can do class actions against a government, but, you get a bunch of investors to go and saying, like, hey, let's expedite this here already because it's ridiculous. We're competing with something that can't be competed with.
Yeah, and I'm surprised there's, not just silence from the federal government on this, really, but also from Bay Street or Wall Street. They're not screaming about it. Their investors are losing money. Most of the stocks are going down. Really of no fault to the companies, licensed producers, or anything like that, but it's just not being properly regulated. The people involved in the industry were never given a good opportunity to have a good start because of the black market. It should have been the first priority. There should have been an amount of effort, time put into trying to control the black market before it went legal across the board. There wasn't any. I know law enforcement personnel are very frustrated. There's a lot of confusion out there, what they can do or what they can't do. And there's just no leadership on taking out the black market. There's a lot of talk, from people that I've respected over the years, but that's all it is. There's no action. And the frontline law enforcement, the management, upper management, law enforcement are very frustrated because there's no leadership on what they should be doing. So it's flourishing, the black market. And it's affecting all of us, whether you're a user, legitimate user with cannabis, or you're an investor in the industry. We're all paying for it. And again, it's just frustrating. There's nothing happening to fix this problem.
Craig Bromell is joining us, Chief of Security and Intelligence, 360 Secure, 360secure.com. I was just sort of going over like other analogies, and I know we've used some of them in the past, like, how alcohol couldn't be sold in a park. But if you think about even how regulated the food industry is, where a hot dog vendor needs a license, there's more crackdown on there would be on selling illegal food or street meat than there is on illegal drugs. Like, it's kind of insane.
It is. And, there really is no excuse for it. I think a number of reasons why they're turning a blind eye to it. I think that it's the magnitude of the cannabis world before October last year. I don't think the government understood that. It was a big, big business, billions of dollars in business, not just in Canada, globally. And I don't think that they, it was whether it was a political move by the feds, by the Liberals to bring this in to get votes. It was just such a big problem out there when it came to cannabis that we just weren't ready. There's less than 30 stores in the province of Ontario where somebody can legitimately go and purchase, walk in and purchase, different types of cannabis. And that's just a joke. I mean, it's just like, it's really, really bad. There should be a couple of hundred. There should be a couple of hundred in Toronto alone. And to give everybody a chance to make this work, where the plan it was a good plan. Put it in place. On the medicinal side of this is a great idea. I know friends that benefit from the medicinal side. The recreational side, it was coming forward, is a good idea. So I'm concerned about the edibles coming in right now because we don't control the other two. And I think the edibles coming in, I don't think it's going to affect the market in any way because we don't have control over the black market. Or it's not going to affect the stocks because we don't control the black market. So I just believe in being as honest about this as possible. People that are legally doing this and producing it are making a lot of money. It's cash. They're not paying any taxes. So once again, we all pay for that. And why, again, it's frustrating why we're turning a blind eye to this when there should be a huge effort being put forward by the two levels of government, really three levels of government also. The municipalities like City of Toronto offer up bylaw officers to control this, and there aren't that many of them. So I think it's going to be the world we're in. I think it's the cannabis industry is not going to have a chance to succeed for years to come. I think a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money in the meantime, and you're seeing it now. I mean, don't go to a bank right now to try to raise money to start up a new cannabis company of some kind. There have been all kinds of reports out in the newspapers about that. The banking industry is really changing their mind toward this, and there's a lot of people to blame for that, and it's really not the people that want to start up a legitimate business.
Craig, the cannabis industry is, you're right, it's this really interesting place right now. Will a catalyst, do you think it being federally legal in the States one day will help it?
I think it will help them in the States, but I don't think it's going to make a difference with us. Anything the Americans do, not just cannabis, is, we're 10% of them. Right? So as good as it is here, multi-billion dollar industry here, really we're 10% of what the Americans can legitimately produce when it comes to cannabis. I think that the federal government, the states were ready to move to make it legal. And I think this vaping situation last month about causing some deaths, Trump has made some comments about that. And I think that it's going to go back a bit on this. They're not too sure how much marijuana is involved in that. So that was some negative news in the last couple of weeks about that. And I think we will see it legal in the States from a federal point of view. I just thought it was going to be sooner. I think it's going to be later now. It's not going to. I really believe it was going to happen by the end of the year, before their next election down there.
And closer to home here, where a federal election is really just around the corner. Are we seeing any cannabis talk at all from any of these leaders? Or are we seeing anything actually in this political race other than smearing?
Oh, you talking about our election?
Yeah, our election. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's in. It's going to be here. How much we're going to control it, I'm not sure, but I haven't seen any talk about it at all from any of the leaders, I guess, of the now 5 parties. I don't know if that's good or bad. In the business I'm in, I'd like to see, obviously, more control in the security of this, which there isn't any. And I think that instead of being all over the map, like each province is different, there should be a set of rules that for everybody, and the Fed should have brought it in. That would have controlled the provinces when it came to this. And the security side of this is really failed miserably. There's no doubt about it. Everybody's talking about it. I wish more people would talk openly about it. There's still, in the city of Toronto, there's still unsolved murders from before involving cannabis. Again, I go back to organized crime. So, again, it's very frustrating for us. We think that the security side of this should be a real priority, and that benefits everybody involved in the industry, including the shareholders.
And while it's frustrating for you, though, you got to sort of be proud of what everything your company's doing, and not to seriously sound infomercial or anything, but the fact that you and 360 Secure are like, you almost solved problems for companies that didn't even have it on their radar. Like it was interesting. Like you came in there saying, have you thought about this? You consulted with them. By the way, we can provide a service, and being at the forefront of protecting the transports, the exports, the expanding into the States now. And I mean, I guess you got to take a lot of pride in as a company knowing, hey, listen, thank God a company like yours exists.
We do, and we are taking the lead on it. We're looking for other partners involved in that, and I'm talking about law enforcement. We take our clients very serious. We take our employees very serious when it comes to their safety, and we make it clear. We do our own intelligence gathering. Any minor incident, we notify, involving our drivers, we notify law enforcement wherever the incident occurred. And we're very proactive when it comes to that. We really feel that we have to, because the rules aren't in place to properly protect our employees and our clients. So we do. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we do take it serious, and we're trying to take the lead on that. Because one bad incident, it's a loss for everybody. So we're trying to be proactive when it comes to that and protecting our clients.
Not necessarily to relate the two, but again, conversations we've had in the past about sort of the amount of gun action closer to home here in Toronto and the suburbs and stuff. And granted, while we speak to all of Canada and really all of the states if they want to listen and tune in, and we do have a lot of states listeners, which is pretty cool. But we just saw some crazy amounts of violence here in Toronto and just outside of it, with car chases on the 410 and shooting, and hundreds of rounds by 6 or 7 different individuals at a party. And I mean, like, was this the Toronto that you envisioned it to come? Because it's quite freaky, man. And I don't know if enough people are talking about the lack of gun control.
Well, and including the federal leaders for the parties during the election. There's hardly any talk about it at all, including the Conservatives. I think it's the world we live in now, Todd. I think it's now, when you and I were with the same company when doing radio in the past, it would be front page news. I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see it further back in coverage. It's not going to be on the 6 o'clock news. It's going to be at the 6:10, 6:15, which I think is big. It's going to be on page 30 in the newspapers. I think it's just that I think the decision makers out there have seen that society is not reacting in a hostile way. So, and like what I mean by that is, you better fight this problem, or we're going to kick you out of office. We're in the middle of the election right now. We've had thousands of shots fired, not hundreds, in the city of Toronto in the last month. Like, a lot of firearms are going off, shots. And so nobody's talking about it. So I think it's going to be the world we live in now. And when you're going out with your family, and this is happening in all parts. I'm speaking about Toronto now. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in the GTA, Brampton, Mississauga. And I think that, it's funny that, during the rally for Bianca, the tennis star, Trudeau's there, and there's massive shooting you're talking about up the street. Huh. So, and it's a way of life now. It's not a shocking moment anymore. And, the old saying, and this came from law enforcement, and I think it's with the communities now, if it's bad guy on bad guy, who cares? And it's definitely that. If innocent bystanders get hit, it's in the news for a week or two, then it just goes away. So I think we've accepted it now. And I think the decision makers have seen that. So why make it a priority, as sad as it is, when the communities aren't making it a priority? You see the coverage for a couple of days, and it just goes back to normal. And there's a lot of victims out there. Whether it's bad guy on bad guy, they do have families, and we see the mothers stand up and look for answers, and they're not getting it. And nobody else is jumping to help them. Law enforcement is doing the best they can. But you don't see anybody else showing up at the press conferences to help them. And I just think it's the world we live in now, Todd. I truly do. It's not a big moment. It's not a shock and awe anymore. We became numb to it, and we're used to it now. And you just want to hope that you and your family aren't out about and you get sprayed, by a ricochet or something. And that's just the world we live in now.
Huh. Desensitized to gun violence, wild. And you're right. I mean, it's just we're exposed to too much. You just see it. It's another news story. And one thing I'll tell you, Craig, and you know me, I've the utmost respect for police officers, and I'm thankful to them every single day. But I do think to myself, why would anyone want to go in that profession anymore?
They had a rash of shootings in the middle of Toronto by the Allen and Lawrence a couple of months ago. And I was talking to a lot of the officers that were redeployed to that area. It was a bad weekend, and there was quite a few people shots fired, reports of shots fired. So they took officers from different parts of the city and put them in there for a period of time, and they were literally laughing at the whole situation because there's nothing they could do. They can't stop anybody. It was literally to show the flag, drive around, show the flag, but they're still instructed that they can't stop and interview people. So it became a joke. So it's literally just drive around. You might as well just park a couple of police cars in the neighborhood, because the officers in that car really can't do anything. And what they should be doing is stopping as many as they could, interviewing them, investigating it. Your reasonable probable grounds change when you have 14 shootings in a weekend involving gangbangers. And these officers that are showing up know who the gangbangers are. They have the intelligence on who they are. They should have the power to stop and interview people, and that would help get the guns off the street. But they thought it was a joke. They just thought it's just smoke and mirrors. It's to appease certain groups of people, and they didn't really do anything. So it was that, and me interviewing them a couple of weeks ago about it, became laughable. There was nothing they could do anyways.
Unreal. I get so discouraged when you start to hear that this is the way this world has become, where I
think we have to talk the truth about it.
You're right.
Common sense now. Let's not be too politically correct here and say this is what's happening, and this is the truth, and it's shameful. It's like absolutely shameful, including, whether they're gangbangers or not. They have mothers and all that. There's stuff. Nobody wins on this thing. I mean, nobody wins. So why the governments, and I say multiple governments, feds, the province, municipalities, are saying more than just building more housing and getting jobs. Well, that doesn't solve the problem today. We have a problem today. Those ideas are great down the road. We're going to see that years down the road, the results of that. Nothing is in place for today. Nothing's in place.
Craig, it's funny because there's the old adage and old slang, you get away with murder. It's like, I feel like that's happening. Yet the ironic part about it is, you tweet the wrong thing 6 years ago, you're treated like the worst criminal of all time. Like where's the disconnect here?
I think we're a little too political correct these days. We're humans. Nobody's perfect out there.
No one.
And people have to remember that. And sometimes, and it doesn't go far enough. It used to before, but an apology should go further. A sincere apology,
yep.
No matter what you've done, as long as it's not criminal. As long, I go back to my days if it's an arrest involving criminal charges. But if it's something where the sincere apology can be used, we're numb to that stuff now.
Well, what happened to evolving? What happened to growing? What happened to learning from our mistakes and getting better? What happened to everything we teach our children? Yet now, if you're an adult, you make a mistake, you can't be forgiven ever. Like it really doesn't make sense to me, man. But I think it's got to come around at some point. And I mean, everything sort of has a balancing act. It's got to, because people are they're going to give up soon.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's just to see how our election is going to go in the next few weeks. So far, I think it's going to be very boring for most of us. I don't think there's anything earth-shattering. I think the best thing could happen, and I'm not saying either party, I'm not picking one or the other, but I think a minority government would be the best for us right now. I think a minority government keeps everybody as honest as we can get them.
Yep.
I'm very nervous about a majority for anybody today if we were to get another majority. I think a minority government would be really, no matter, right now, whether liberal or conservative. I am a conservative, but I don't think it matters who wins right now. I don't think anything's going to change. And it's very quiet. And I think it's going to stay quiet. I think it's going to be one of the quieter elections we've ever had, and mainly because of social media. I think a lot of the leaders are very nervous about saying certain things.
Yep.
Because it will be exaggerated one way or the other through the media. And there's been some horrific things gone on in Ottawa this year with cabinet ministers, with, accusations through some very serious media outlets of politicians and leaders lying and deceitful, and nothing's happened. So, again, I think we're just numb to it. We're numb to the negative news. It's nothing but negative news down in the States. And I think we're paying for that. And people are ignoring. They don't want to hear negativity anymore when it comes to politicians. So I think it's going to be a very quiet election. I'm just hoping it's a minority. I really, truly think that's going to help all of us. Whoever wins, it's a minority government.
Yeah, and it is quiet right now anyway. And like I said, you're just seeing smearing most of the time, but it's not even shocking at this point. It's like, oh yeah, just another election ad, big deal. Craig, I like these honest chats. You know me, I'm a straight shooter as well, and I think they're important. That's all we try to do here is have these real chats, and you bring it just the best, man. So we appreciate your time representing, obviously, as a chief security intelligence at 360 Secure, but really just represent yourself as a great, honest individual who likes to be as candid as possible, and I think most importantly we need that talking about across the spectrum and across the board. That's what we need from everyone. Let's have healthy discussions. Thank you for bringing one today. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
Craig Bromell, everyone, what a beauty.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.